bonkin', everybody, and welcome to Take Your Time, a Persona 5 Royal podcast where we play along with the in-game calendar dates, along with the real calendar dates. I'm your co-host, Tom Marks, joined as always by Jonathon Dornbush. Jonathan, how are you?
I like to imagine when we do that comparison, there are just like numbers floating above our head of like the in-game calendar, the real game calendar, and they just kind of like float there. But I'm doing well. How are you? We got a lot to talk about this week.
Yeah, we do. We are going through the last full free week of Okumura's Palace, obviously going through the palace itself, gonna dig into that, and the lovely little boss fight at the end of all of that, that, you know, is everyone loves and is great and is not a problem at all. This is, of course, the dates... all right. If the dates of October 4th to October 10th, and yeah, we've got a lot to dig into. We've also got a lot of comments, but starting off, let's do the pop quiz from last week. Get that out of the way first. So last week I asked, what is the Okumura family motto, according to Okumura himself? And a lot of people got this correct, so I'm not going to shout out everybody, but I did want to read one comment from Reed, who commented on the Dornology YouTube channel after unsuccessfully fighting this guy 5 times. And then said what the motto was. The motto is, let me get it right, overcome failure at any cost, even if it means betraying others. Which is just, you know, a nice, wholesome family motto, I think.
Yeah, it's a way to live. I mean, it does really set up a sort of Machiavellian betrayal of the family itself sort of scenario, but, you know, I get it from his perspective.
I think I saw some message board, like, discussion about how probably overcome failure at any cost was the family motto, and then like the shadows like warped perception of it added the even if it means betraying others.
Do you mean real world forums or the fan site?
Yes, real world.
Okay,
forums.
Just double checking. I was like, did
real
I miss
world forums?
Am I missing a place you can go hang out with the fans of the Phantom Thieves?
No. That was the theory, but I liked the idea that it is just, in fact, his family motto in both reality.
Yeah. I like that quite a bit.
And Reed said, and boy, do I feel that motto after getting my ass kicked so much. Hopefully turning the difficulty down can help a bit. Fun fact, it might not. More on that later. Oh. And Reed says, any tips next episode would be much appreciated. Yeah, we'll definitely dig into the boss fight later because it's a lot. And we can talk about that. Yeah. And yeah, there's some weird stuff with how people have figured out that potentially it's easier on the highest difficulty than it is on the lowest. So
interesting.
Yeah, this boss fight has problems.
for like full disclosure, it doesn't matter hugely to this since I played on normal this time, but I did actually bump down the difficulty to easy on my first like base P5 playthrough during this palace because I kept getting one-shotted by enemies.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of them there. Fun. So I'm very interested to hear about that.
Yeah. So we'll jump into that later.
For sure.
Jonathan.
Yes.
You forwarded me a cryptic email from Reed and told me to open it on the show live and not have a live reaction to it.
Well, I should say the email itself isn't cryptic, but Reed wrote in, and I wanted this to be a surprise for at least one of us on the show because I was so delighted that I have not been able to contain myself. So I'm going to read the email and then let you open it. I'll tell you when to open it. And for those watching at home on the YouTube version, I'll put it up. And for those listening, go check out the YouTube version and go on Twitter. I'll be posting it there as well.
And we'll describe it, I guess, too.
But yes, so Reed wrote in and said, "Hi, Jonathon and Tom. Finally caught up on the podcast. The podcast is always a joy to listen to and is a great way to start the week. All the House MD jokes have been hilarious and inspired some fan art for the podcast. Enjoy." Tom, go ahead and open up your email.
Oh, no.
And witness what Reed has put together for us because it is incredible.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
That's genuinely upsettingly impressive.
I was out walking Loki when this email appeared in my inbox and like opened it on my phone, and I had to like zoom in, and I was standing in the middle of like a park, and I think I like really laughed out loud to myself because a couple of people started to look at me strangely. For those who don't have the ability to see this at the moment, if you're listening via audio, this is a sort of Persona confidant screen of Dr. House himself. And it's,
oh man, it's so upsettingly well done.
It's so great. It's in the style of one of the pause screens It has a bit of the confidant, the sort of star ranking part of it. He is known as the back alley doctor. It's how
swapped out for Takemi.
Yeah. It's a swap for Takemi, which is great. The little bio for it is, it's never lupus except when it is. And then Dr. House, a hotshot American doctor practicing in Tokyo after faking his death. Guest starred on the program Mouse MD, which I love that headcanon. That House is in Persona. And is in fact in Tokyo. This was just so awesome that Reed sent in. Thank you, Reed, and thank you for letting us show it as well. You can go follow Reed. His Twitter handle is in the description for the episode as well. But this was really, really awesome to see, and thank you for sending that along.
Well, that's equal parts deeply upsetting and deeply touching, I think.
Yes.
Is how I feel about that.
I was so pleased.
Thank you so much for sending that in. That is ridiculous and amazing. And I did finish the Mouse MD DVD this week, so
nice.
It's appropriate as well.
Awesome.
There were a couple other comments I wanted to read from the Dornology YouTube channel, just because they touch on things we asked last week. So apologies if I'm mispronouncing this name, but Siddharth says, if you sent the calling card on the 2nd, you would do the boss on the 3rd, and the new events with Kasumi would then be pushed to the 4th. So that's not what I would have expected, but interesting. So thank you for that answer, for sure. And then Thomas also wrote in answering another one of our questions saying the movie and show parodies are the same in both Japanese and English, though I think some of the titles use different puns in the Japanese version, which is really interesting to me as well. I wouldn't have expected that either. So cool. Thank you both for that intel. Because I neither of those are the answers I would have expected out of that. So neat. Great.
Same for me. Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah.
And finally, we got a comment from Mitch that I wanted to read, which was, all the prep paid off. I got the boss down on the first try this time. Question for next week: if you could take away any one element from the boss encounter, which would make most sense to you, i.e. the time limit, the baton pass being necessary, or the resetting every 2 rounds? And we're going to answer that, but we're going to save that for the boss discussion, I think, just because it's a good question, but I wanted to shout it out here so that we can answer it during
in
the boss
context stuff. It'll be a lot easier to dig into. But
I'm glad to hear. I saw a lot of people saying they struggled with it or got through it great, well, and kudos to those who managed to and don't feel like you are doing something wrong necessarily if you didn't. But we will go over kind of tips and tricks for that a little bit later on. Let's start out, though. Jonathan, you went to the palace this week, right?
I did, yes, yeah.
So we're going to use your dates as kind of the jumping off points for that.
Great, because I went to the palace on the first day.
Hey, look at that. So the first day, obviously, this week is October 4th to October 10th. We'll jump right in, I guess, then. Palace, day 1.
Yeah.
So, Okumura's Spaceport Palace. A notorious palace for making people stop in the original base game and kind of getting frustrated and walking away. Has had some tweaks to make things a little bit more accessible, a little more streamlined. Not major tweaks. Like, I went back and I looked at a walkthrough of the base game, and it's less different than I remembered, but there are changes for sure. Mm-hmm. Generally, how did you feel about this palace this time through?
Yeah, so this point going forward in the game, my memory is pretty hazy of the palaces in particular.
Okay,
so it's close to starting fresh for me. But I did remember this one enough because there was such a reputation for it even back then. And so sort of the basic structure of it remained the same in my memory. And so the area of the factory where you're having to extend arms of machinery to be able to cross over, the quick teleporting between rooms through, quick little spaceports. That part I remembered. Overall, the actual palace itself, I enjoyed more than I thought I would, because it was so ingrained in me that this was going to be a nightmare. And having reset the difficulty my first time to easy, I fully, without even looking at it, I used a guide the first time around for that, switching the levers to make sure you go through the thing in the correct order, because people were telling me, patron saint of the podcast, Andrew Goldfarb, was like, you're going to hate this part. It is the worst part of the game for most people. And
so it's funny. Real quick, he
Yeah.
told me that too, and I loved that part. I thought that was genuinely like, I complain on this show a lot about like the puzzles being too straightforward, and I was like, oh, this is actually like a real puzzle. Cool, like I'm into this.
Well, and I don't know if it's easier in this version, because I didn't go look up, because I full disclosure, played the Palace yesterday just because of time constraints this past week, and so I was going through it like quite a bit yesterday, and I got through that section. I maybe turned, like, I looped maybe once by accident through a room, but everything else I got pretty quickly. And I don't know if they made some changes to the way you go through it to make it easier, but it didn't feel that bad. The boss fight, which I luckily managed to get on only my second try through, like, sheer luck of the way my party was set up, I think. Had that not happened, I would have, I think, been stuck there for most of the night, and it's hands down my least favorite boss fight so far because of the machinations of it. But in terms of the Palace itself, I liked it more than I thought I was going to, and I feel weird about that. But I enjoyed it more than I expected going in.
So as far as I know, the jumping through space part is basically the same as it was.
Okay.
The part that is massively changed is the one earlier on where you have to like get the key cards from people. That section has been changed a lot.
Okay.
And we'll go into the individual sections. I will agree though, this Palace in Royal, I didn't have like a huge problem with it when I played it in the base game. I thought it was fine. Mm-hmm. In Royal it feels like a little long maybe, and a couple points where you can kind of just get like decked without realizing it. Like I died once at one point accidentally. This was a very dumb death, but it was, I was going up against an enemy I hadn't fought, and I was testing weaknesses, and I used a move with Joker while he had flow, and it reflected off the enemy and happened to also be the move that my persona was weak to, and it just I literally just one-shot myself with flow. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
That is that is another thing I did want to bring up. It's we're now at a point in the game where if you've been keeping up with your confidants, and especially Futaba in that sense, you and the party that you actually go into combat with, so much can happen before you actually like do anything in many moves, which I both love, and it's very amusing because it's I think ProZD, the YouTuber and voice actor, has a really funny thing about like playing Magic, where it's like the perfect Magic chain, and it's like I do this thing that creates this thing, and it creates 10 cows that make the cheese that then get turned into the milk that then creates more cows, and you do that over and over. And it feels like that sometimes in this Palace, where it was like, oh, my attack flow went up, and then also 3 people had like I'm gonna totally butcher the name, but like Tarukaja or one of those, and those self-boosted us from the beginning, and then someone got hungered, but then someone comes and immediately swipes them, and I don't even get to fight yet. And it's just things are happening, but
you get a lot of synergies now.
Yeah, but in terms of like my memory of this Palace being a thing where I got stuck in a loop in my first playthrough of that area, where it's sort of like 2 concurrent bridges that you essentially have to get arms across. I got stuck there in enemy fights where they were just one-shotting me over and over, and so I bumped it down to easy. I didn't have that problem anywhere here, but I think it was also because I knew that was a potential risk, and so I came in with things that were like, most of my party members were the people who save you from an insta-kill. I had items that would prevent insta-kills. I had homunculuses more than I did previously. Like, I really went in expecting, and I do think this is a Palace that you do need a little bit of prep for, or you can get really caught off guard pretty quickly.
Yeah, the other time I got not one shot, I don't think... No, maybe it was one shot, was the persona that was guarding, or the shadow that was guarding the will seed. That shadow is always super hard, but in this Palace particularly, it felt like that one was like hit like a truck, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so there are moments where it can, like, this Palace can be, and I agree it's lessened than the base game, but this Palace can be particularly spiky, right? It can be like you're doing fine, because the other thing that's funny about it is like it can be especially spiky, or feel especially spiky, because 2 of the main enemies in it are I guess I will not say the names just so that, in case they come up later. But there's the starfish guy, and then there's the winged guy. And the starfish is weak to physical. So it's like just laughably simple, right?
Yeah.
And then the winged guy is weak to gun. So you have these two enemies that are just like pushover easy to get all out attacks on, right? You don't have to spend any SP, especially with the gun changes. You just constantly are using your gun against them. Yeah. And so it's like you have enemies that are pushover easy next to enemies that, like, if you're not careful, you'll just die. And it's like, oh, okay, this is a little funny.
Yeah, it's not really, there's not much middle ground in
right.
the end. And it makes for some very interesting battles, because even those non-pushover ones some of them do have weaknesses, and so it isn't a matter of just putting everyone to sleep to get technicals. But it might be a very rare thing. Like, some of them I think were bless, and if you just don't happen to have a persona with bless, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Some of them are psychic, obviously, and if you don't put a Haru in your party, you may possibly not have a persona that has that. Whereas I feel it's more common to have lightning and wind and fire and ice a little bit more in Joker's persona, like, grouping. So yeah, it's definitely one where I think you can feel the pressure, and some of the battles could go on a long time if you just are caught in a bad position. But it also made for some really fun fights as a result. I also got incredible amounts of money from this palace. I think there was a single battle where I got like 90,000 from one enemy. It was the toilet guy. And I just kept knocking him down, and every time it was like, here's 18,000, I guess, enjoy. And he just kept doing that.
And you just keep asking for it until they get mad at you, and then they call somebody in, and then you pump that person for money.
Exactly.
It's great.
It was wonderful.
You can really exploit that, and I didn't do much of that this time. But yeah, you can really exploit it if you want to.
I only did because I bought all new weapons right before, so I was down to like 100,000 yen. Before I went in, and then I got back up to, before I bought all the weapons, I was at 600,000, went down to 100,000, came out of the palace at 700,000. So I was like, yeah, this went pretty well. I'm pleased with that.
I think I came out at about 650 or something like that, and then I immediately spent like 200,000 on revive the entire team items before the boss fight.
That's a good call.
It was like that sort of thing. Let's talk about some of the pre-palace stuff, though, really quick, because before we jump into the palace itself, because I agree. I liked this palace. I think it's fun. I think it's challenging in interesting ways. I think the way it weaves story into mechanics and theme is really cool for the most part. Like, I think this is actually genuinely this palace gets a bad rap, right? At least it gets a bad rap in the base game, and it is not nearly as egregious in Royal.
Yeah.
Leading into the palace, we get an An and Yusuke showtime, which is cool.
Yes.
So that gets unlocked. I don't know if you got a chance to use it.
Can you tell me what it is without spoiling it?
It's the one kind of in the the I can't remember the name of it, like tatami mat room, like a very traditional Japanese room, and they like do the thing where he knocks up the floor tiles.
Oh yes, I did do that one. Yes, yeah, that one was very good.
It's cool.
I saw that
Simpler,
one,
but cool.
Yes, I swear. Is that the one that's like a Western, or is that another one?
No, the Western one is Ryuji and Makoto.
Oh, okay. I also got that one for the first time during here. So
that one's great.
I
love how subservient Ryuji is to Makoto.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's so adorable.
Yeah, so I got to use both of those, and yeah, as you mentioned, the An and Yusuke one happened right before, and I'm very glad it showed up during this, because it is a very fun one.
The other thing that we get is we get some story as you go into this palace. The first kind of section of this palace is recognizable, right? It's this first area that you see the first time you come in and meet up with Haru and Morgana, and you get through the biometric door, and immediately you're confronted with Haru's dad, who, spouts off his trademark motto, his iconic family motto. And then basically what you learn is he's completely depraved. He does not care who he has to step on or throw under the bus to elevate himself, including his own daughter. And And you also find out that kind of his ultimate goal right now is to elevate to the political world, right? He's trying to leave business to become a politician. And he would trade Haru as a puppet to just, like, do his bidding, and then you fight a giant shadow version of Haru's really skeezy boyfriend, or fiancé, who it's very clear, it's not just, like, there's, if there was any wonder of, like, maybe he's doing this partly for Haru, it's like, no, this is explicitly, he is trading his daughter to gain political clout. Like, that is all it is.
Oh, absolutely. There is no fatherly care here whatsoever.
And then we get Noir's awakening. So Haru awakens, and man, do I love Haru's persona and style, because she's this, like, kind of cutesy, Three Musketeers-y pink outfit, and her persona is this masked lady in a big ballroom dress, but then she has just a huge axe, a grenade launcher, and the dress opens up to be 12,000 guns. Like, it's just, like, the best dichotomy of visual style.
It's amazing, and I don't know if this is going to get me in trouble, but, like, full disclosure, in my first playthrough, I kind of ignored Haru. I think, like,
sure.
I was at a point in the game.
Do.
Yeah, I was very much at a point where I was like, I like the main group. I've had them for a while now. We don't need any newcomers coming in here. Yeah. She's not even really our good friend yet. Like, let's pump the brakes, my dudes. She's mostly here because Morgana decided to go off. Yes, it was Ryuji's fault, but nonetheless. So I pretty much never used Haru. And so there was a moment where I was playing and I'm like, oh, she has a giant axe. Oh, that's awesome. Like, I genuinely didn't remember the fundamentals of just her character setup. And so I agree with you. It is a really fun dichotomy of having this Cinderella-inspired persona, her sort of, not floofy, but it is very, like, stately, sort of Robin Hood-esque.
Yeah.
Phantom Thief look, and then here's a grenade launcher and just a giant axe to attack, and I really like it. Also, she's really useful in combat, not just because psychic can be really powerful here, but her God, I can't think of the word I want to use, but the options that she has for her persona were really good, especially the triple shot.
She's gun. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to not use persona abilities that take away HP because I'm just desperately afraid I'm going to instantly die. But that one really came in handy and saved my ass many times, including in the boss fight.
Well, I would recommend you use Yusuke's HP abilities because he can just, like, oh man, he can dish some damage out with those. Okay. But, yeah, I agree. Her ability with the triple shot, like, that's kind of her theme, right? Is Psy and gun stuff. She's the only one, I think, that can get triple shot or, like, a gun ability, a gun damage ability, I think. And yeah, so she's very interestingly positioned, and I really like Haru. I don't think you're alone in this either, in that, like, I think in the base game especially, where they haven't seeded her into these earlier scenes like they do in Royal nearly as much, she just kind of comes out of nowhere a little bit. Like, she's been teased here and there, but she's, like, kind of comes out of nowhere a little bit, and then, like, the game is over in a couple of months, right? Like, it's not like there's a ton of time to get to know her. And so I agree. In the first game, I didn't spend a ton of time with her. I think she was the only mainline party member I didn't max. I got her to, like, 8 before I ran out of time with her because I was just kind of focusing on other things. And, like, it was only on playing Royal again that I was like, oh yeah, because I'd already gotten to know her a little bit, so I, like, started to learn about her more. In the same way that, you know, like, when you first meet Yusuke is kind of, like, annoying and weird, and then you get to know Yusuke and you start loving him, and you, like, just don't get as much time with Haru. So I agree. On the second playthrough, I started liking her a lot more, and I also really enjoyed her role, this is getting off topic, but in Strikers, because that's a similar thing where you just, like, start with your whole party at the very beginning, so, like, you just get to spend a lot more time with these characters, and, like, yeah, I came to really, really like Haru, and I'm excited to, like, dig in a little more with her for this round.
Yeah, glad Royal is giving me more of an appreciation for her, because I totally agree with you. I do think it is primarily a function of time, and because so much of your it's not just the time, but the quality of that time, because when you're spending it with those early characters, one, there's fewer people, so you're focusing on each of them, and two, you're all discovering everything at the same time. Like, by the time Haru gets into it, there's even some, like, jokes about the discussions that they have with her after the fact of, like, what the Phantom Thieves are and what they do and everything. And it's like, yeah, it's old hat by now. We know this, and we've been part of the group, and we've discovered all these things together, whereas with Haru, it's kind of telling her the discovery, and so I think that makes her feel a little bit distanced. But you're totally right. I'm appreciating her more now, even just in this palace, and I think that's
right.
Cool.
So let's get into the meat and potatoes of some of these areas. The first area we got through, Haru awakens, and then you continue on. The kind of, like, you have to go through this, like, sidle around this server room, right? That's very sort of Star Wars, and, like, flip a switch, and then there's a will seed there, but that's, like, sort of a quick thing. I think they added that, too. I don't remember it, at least. And then you get kind of into the first chunk of an area, and this is the area that has been most drastically changed in Royal, which is this section where you have to go get key cards, and you have to, like, spy on people and learn about what the manager is like, and then go over to the big robots that are the managers and, like, identify which one is which, and then beat them to get their key card, or just, like, fight them all and it doesn't matter. So that's the structure of this, and this section is way simpler than it was in the base game. In the base game, there was another tier of guys you had to fight, another tier of key cards, and in this one there's only, like, 2 options for each of the key cards, and in the base game there was, like, 3, and so it was just way longer, and there was way more stuff, and you couldn't, like, learn their weaknesses by listening in, so it was, like, it was just more annoying, basically, right? It was just, like, longer and didn't need to be. And in this, it's, like, sort of fine.
You saying that now, I'm starting to remember the having more options and that creating more of a problem now. Because, this was, like, I found the guy the first try and was like, hey, you said this, you're the bad one, I know what you're weak against, I'm just going to go fight you. And then it was over pretty quickly. And, it was completely streamlined, and you mentioning sort of the complexity of the original, but it's not complexity for interesting reasons. Like you were saying, you like the spaceport puzzle later because it feels like a real puzzle. Having this section be more complex than it is in Royal doesn't make it a more interesting puzzle. It makes it a more frustrating, like, time gate, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
I don't hate this section. I think it's fine. I think that the only thing that I really do enjoy about it is that, like, you get a lot of choice in, like, how much you actually want to talk to these people. Like, you can very clearly, easily just, like, end a conversation and fight them. Yeah. Or you can sort of, like, try to string them along a little bit. So it brings a little bit of that, like, confidant conversation choice element into actual fights, and, like, gives you a little bit of intel and fun ways to learn about what the next one and the next thing you have to do. So I like that. I think it's cute and clever, and definitely more enjoyable when it is not as belabored as it is in the base game.
Totally. It doesn't outstay its welcome here.
Yeah, exactly. So you get a couple key cards, and then you basically just loop back and go back into the original room that you were in. And the next area is this sort of outdoor section, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're, like, jumping on you're, like, flying across things and jumping up and down, like, these, like, weird flying saucer things. And there's a couple sort of, like, couple sort of story-ish things happening here where you, like, you haven't found any evidence of the mental shutdown stuff yet, which is, like, concerning in a small way at this point. Yeah. But then also B, you're, like, don't know what you're working towards, right? Like, you are heading towards this factory, but you, like, don't know what they're doing. You don't know. So you're trying to piece together what all this stuff is as you're making your way there. And it's a little bit more, I don't want to say, like, linear, but, like, it is a little bit more like, we have a very clear goal of where we're walking. It's that building off in the distance, right? And, like, you're just trying to make your way there in the way that a couple of the other palaces don't don't necessarily feel like that. They feel a little bit more like exploring a space or like trying to figure out a space sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
so it's a little bit of a different vibe.
No, totally. Especially something like Futaba's Palace, where it can be like I think the good and bad of that example, where exploring a space can be interesting to let you discover things, but also can be very confusing in certain areas of it. Where there's one area of the like jumping up and down places where you can kind of loop back around to pick, like you basically had two options to go, and you can either do more fights and collect maybe a treasure chest or just keep going. But it's pretty hard to miss where you need to just keep going in most of this early part of the palace.
Yeah. Then we get to the factory, and the factory is where you learn some things, right? You basically learn, I think this happens at the end of the factory, but you basically learn that not only is he abusing his workers, the whole factory is powered on, like, recycling the dead robot bodies of his workers, right? Literally, they are the fuel of his industry, and you realize that kind of more sort of how much he doesn't respect his workers. And this factory section is split into 3 sections. You've got that kind of main conveyor belt section where you're, like, knocking down the arms, which has been simplified a little bit from the base game. And then you've got a section where there are these smasher things that you have to turn off. You have to set it to lunch break, right? And you get 30 seconds, which is very funny. But that also introduces this idea of timers running mid-combat and while you're doing other things that then comes up later for the boss. So I like how they seed that in. And then the third section of the factory is a combination of the two, right? You've got arms and smashers. And all of these puzzles are, like, fairly straightforward, right?
Totally.
These are the types of button puzzles that I was talking about where it's like, it's not really a puzzle as much as it's just like, go to the next button and hit it. But that doesn't mean it's not like a bad area. It's fine.
No, not at all. It's mostly like, don't dawdle once you hit the timer and just make sure you go where you need to. And there's maybe like 1 or 2 times where you might think, oh, I thought I needed to go to that one, but it didn't seem to change, and then you just go back and do it again. So it's not too complicated, or I think like if you mess up, chances are if you mess up once, you probably won't mess up too many more times, because there usually weren't more than like 2 or 3 options at most of where to go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fun thematically, right? Like this, it's funny, this idea that like you press all these different things and it's like you press the unpaid overtime button and they're like, we're already doing that, and then you press the like break and it's like 5-second break, go ahead, you know, like it's silly and thematically fun.
Yes,
right?
yeah, very very attuned to the head of a mega food chain that isn't treating its employees right. It fits very well there.
There's not like a ton notable about that section otherwise, I feel like.
Yeah,
it's just like you kind of get through it. There's some will seeds scattered in that area, and or I guess there's the second will seed in the first area of it, and then I guess there's the robot arm thing. The robot arms break because they're like so overworked, right? Is this very funny sort of like making, you know, I think back to that IKEA commercial of like, you feel bad for this lamp. That is because you're crazy. It has no feelings, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel bad for this robot arm.
Like, because it's, like the speed of it, how much it had to work. And I'm like, oh, it could be a person. It's...
People are going to not have any idea what I'm talking about there. If
I know what you mean, though.
Google the IKEA lamp ad, and it's really old, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I'm totally with you. There was something we said sort of at the beginning where it's like, this felt like one of the longer palaces, and it's not necessarily a matter of difficult things to do in the palace. It's just a larger palace, and there are, I'd say, a pretty hefty amount of battles.
There's a lot of fights.
And also ones against enemies that can take a while if you're whittling down what their weaknesses are and just not hitting them.
I actually sped through a lot of the fights because I had done so much. I don't know if this was your experience too, but I'd done so much persona crafting. I think I mentioned this last week that like, I think I only like took a mask from like 1 or 2 personas this entire palace. I didn't go to the Velvet Room a single time this entire palace because like I just had most of the personas already. So I knew a lot of the weaknesses really, really quick, and it was pretty. It was very helpful. Right?
Yeah, I didn't have them, I would say, but I weirdly lucked out in terms of having Haru in my party, whereas I didn't last time, and then having bless abilities with Joker's persona. And
right.
kind of getting lucky with the mix of whatever else was needed, because like you said, there's enough of them that are also weak to physical and gun attacks that make figuring out the combos where it was like, okay, maybe Yusuke is in my party and there's no weakness to frost here in any way, ice, but at least he can shoot them, and so we're okay. Like, I usually found my way around things like that.
Yeah. And the end of this factory section also, you know, I really like that they do seed some ideas in early in this palace, right? Like the timer thing. And then the end of this palace section also has these waves of robots that you have to fight, like 3, I think it is, waves of robots to get to the next section. And that is another thing that comes back in the boss. So I like when games do this, when they seed mechanical ideas in earlier. Then the final section, of course, we already talked about a little bit, is this sort of like space jumping door puzzle, which thematically is, again, really, really cool. I love that the music quiets way down when you're outside. And it is like, I can understand why if you're not like looking for an actual puzzle, this can be a little frustrating, and it is a little tricky. Like the second one especially is definitely a little tricky. But I really enjoy it because I love logic puzzles like that. So
I think
I liked it.
Also, part of the reason why it can be frustrating is also it comes really late in a long palace, and it is one of those things where I lucked into, I think, figuring out the right pattern at a certain point. But you're pretty worn down, especially if you've been doing the palace in one go or playing it over the course of one day and not really taking any breaks. And it, like we've said before, the palaces are endurance tests in that way. And this, I think, coming so late in it where you're like, I've done so much in here already, and now you want me to think what is wrong. Like, it's silly to think of it that way, but I do think that adds to it in terms of the frustration, because you are sort of at a point where it's like, oh, but we're so close, I just want to get to the boss battle, and then you get to the boss battle the next day.
And the enemies get harder in this section, right? Like, you start getting a couple more dudes who are like you hadn't seen in the previous sections that are a little bit harder and a little bit more resistant to stuff. And,
I think
I see that as sort of like it's like, man, I can't believe this is still going, is why that wears you down. I get that.
Especially there being 2 sections of it where you're like, I did it, and then, oh no, there's a more complex one. And you might just be at a point where I'm sure people, I think I did this on my first run, but you might hit a certain point where you're just hitting the levers because you're like, just make a thing open. Just do something. And right. So you screw yourself in that way and then need to fix everything. I enjoyed it more this time. I think having the will seed option on the side almost made it easier, because I knew that once a certain bit of the path was done because of the will seed section, I was like, okay, I don't need to focus on a portion of the map, and it made it a lot easier to focus on the correct path. And so again, I don't know if that makes the puzzle easier overall, or I just got lucky playing it this time, but it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I think definitely having done it before, like, you kind of a little bit know more what to expect, and you know what your actions are kind of like doing a little bit more.
Totally.
I both really enjoyed this section, but also I completely understand that argument of like, man, this is still going, and this palace has been pretty, like, not like crazy long, but like it's been going, and it's been a little bit of a trek, and you know, I get that.
Yeah.
And it finally concludes, right, with this treasure room of this, you know, you don't know what all this stuff is going towards yet, but you get to the kind of place where all the stuff from the factory is being delivered, and you save in the safe room and you leave. And that's sort of the palace in a nutshell, right? I think, again, just to recap, I like it thematically. I think it is mechanically not the most complex thing in the world, but also pretty amusing and entertaining, and I think they did some things to make it less daunting as you go through it, and so it just stands as like a fine palace to me now.
I went in fully expecting like, oh well, when I have to rank palaces, this is going to be at the bottom again, and it's not, and I'm okay with that.
I think it's fun. It's a fun one. It's not like, it doesn't inspire the sort of like amazing joy of anything, but it is a fun one.
I also like it. It is a very cool one, and I think some of the puzzles I enjoyed more this time around than I did the first time, and you're probably right that having just some knowledge base of them helps. But I also while I think it is used well in terms of the flying through space and the sound getting quiet, I don't love the look of this palace. Just in terms of it's I don't think it's a poorly created. It doesn't interest me or intrigue me or like really.
It's a little generic.
Yeah.
It's a very just like kind of silver and generic sci-fi and robots, and that's sort of it.
Yeah.
I like the look of the robots themselves, but yeah,
the TARDISes.
Yeah. No.
Or not TARDISes. God, sorry, Daleks.
Yeah, the Daleks.
I've never seen Doctor Who, so
it's okay.
The words are just in my head.
Yeah, so I'd agree that it's not nearly as visually interesting as like some of the other stuff, because the food sort of part of it doesn't really come through very much.
Yeah.
I think it is very just sort of like sci-fi in the way that I think like Futaba's Palace is really cool, because it's got that Egyptian look mixed with sort of like code stuff here and there in interesting ways. I think you're right. And it's also hard to beat stuff like Madarame's like flashy gold palace is just so cool.
Exactly. I think if there was a more, I think you just hit the nail on the head. If there was more of the like fast food aspect of it, that might have been a really interesting combo of trying to get this high-tech silvery spaceport and then also burgers and fries and like the gaudy color scheme of a burger place and things like that. There could have been something fun there, but yeah.
But is it more interesting than a bank office?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's just do calling card and boss right now, really quick.
I did it the next day I could. So
perfect, great, and then we'll go back and talk about what we did in evenings or what have you.
Yes, yeah.
So you send the calling card. You also get, when you go to send the calling card, you get Haru and Morgana get a showtime, which I really enjoy because they are like, it makes sense, right? I think they picked the showtimes well, right? So Haru and Morgana are the two that they had this little bond together, and so they get a showtime together, and that makes sense to me. And then Haru delivers the calling card to her father in his house, and he does something that no other palace ruler has done yet, which is call the cops.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, hey, I've been sent a calling card by this notorious criminal organization. Please protect me. And it's like, oh, that's actually kind of a rational thing to do.
Yeah, that's a smart way to take it. And I think it speaks to a little bit of the machinations of the villains that we're getting to at this point, because a lot of them respond just so emotionally to the calling card, whereas this is like, he's responded emotionally but also logically enough to say, wait, I'm in a huge position of power, they're probably going to protect me if I ask them to. Let me go do this.
So you go back into the palace and you see the treasure, which is this like core, and you learn that it is the core of this spaceship that is Project Utopia, that's going to take Okumura off to Utopia, which is in his mind the political world. It's going to launch him into the political world, so he literally even just only sees his business as a means to launch him to something else, right? Is the whole idea there.
And when I think of Utopia, I think of politics, because there are
exactly.
no problems whatsoever in politics. Yeah,
exactly.
But
and so this section. So how did you do with the timer section running to the boss?
I just skip all the battles. I did one battle because I got caught in a corner and couldn't escape it, and I was like, well, I know their weaknesses, so let me just go through this quickly.
It's hard to skip them, right?
Yeah, but
especially in this one, they make you go through stairways and tight hallways and stuff.
Yeah, I collected every treasure I could, and I think I did maybe 2 fights, but I skipped whatever else I could, purposefully so, and I don't regret it because I'm at a pretty good level, I think, with things. It
and they tell you to skip it.
Yeah, I probably could have spent more time doing a couple to get some extra money, but it just didn't feel worth it.
So I reset, actually, because I tried to do the first fight where I was like, I did this before, I can do it again, and I guess on hard, it must be that I'm playing on hard, that when the palace, when the alarm rating is so high, the odds of another fight showing up at the end of one and another fight showing up is like much higher. So I did a fight, and then immediately a guy spawned in front of me and attacked me right away, and then I killed that group, and it spawned another group, and I killed that group, and it spawned another group, and at this point my like mana was at like 3/4, and I was just like, this is dumb, I'm just not gonna do this, and I just like reset the save.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Something I learned after the fact in doing research about what's changed with this palace that I'm really annoyed about is I think that this section is really annoying to get through with all these shadows, high-level shadows or whatever, and it tells you very much to skip it. Apparently, when you walk towards that first shadow, and Makoto's like, don't bother with them, we gotta go, you can just, like, step back out onto the bridge, and then there's a grapple point that will just take you to the end of the section.
What?
Yeah, I had no idea.
Oh my god, I was really looking out for a grapple point because I thought that would make a lot of sense and nothing.
Yeah. Apparently you gotta go past and then back, and then it becomes available.
That's dirty. That is.
Yeah, it's lame as hell.
Man, that is some dirty stuff. I mean, I appreciate it because it's literally the game telling you should go back, but, you know, I didn't do that.
Yep. It's like those tests where it's like, read the entire instructions of the test, and then the last question is like, don't answer any questions, just write your name, and it's like, you got me.
Did you ever have a teacher actually do that?
I think maybe once. I don't remember.
I never did, but when I was younger, I think when I was in middle school, my mom, my mom went back to college to finish her degree, and had that happen in a class, and I was like, wait, that's a real thing they do? I thought that was just a joke. But
well, apparently some people do it. Anyway,
like Atlas.
Yeah, like Atlas does it. You get through, you get to the ship, however you might do that, and you confront Okumura, who immediately gives up and plays possum, and then locks everyone in a tube, because their motto is to betray everyone always, victory at any cost, and then kind of humorously tries to recruit Morgana, right?
Yeah.
Being like, we've been spying on you, and we see that you have problems with them, and Morgana is like, no, this is my home, and I'm happy here, and shoots the remote control out of Okumura's hand, and you jump into the boss fight. Man, this boss fight sucks. Let's get into it. So this time it took me 4 tries, but one of those tries was because I screwed up very slightly, and I just, like, ended it intentionally, because I was like, this is going to be, like, I could do this, but it's going to be more of a headache, so I might as well not.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was like 4 tries for me this time. It was way more the first time I did it, the first time I played through Royal. And, yeah, it sucks. It's the worst. It's just the worst.
So, yeah, I lucked into a winning strategy, and I beat it in 2.
Okay.
I got really close the first time, and I was really, really excited to come on the show and be like, got him in 1. It was easy, but I made a mistake, and I don't even know what it was, but I basically just got caught in a loop.
Yeah. That's the second time I died, was just like, it's just like, oh, dang. Like, oh, no.
Yeah, so I got caught in this frustrating loop where it was like, if I try to make this work, I maybe could, but the timer will probably run out by this point. But so then I tried to just let myself die, and they kept not dying. And I was like, what's wrong with you all? I'm rushing. I'm letting you all be, like, whipping posts, but you won't die. It just wouldn't happen.
Amazing.
So I had to wait for the timer to run out, excuse me. And I think I got lucky, because I know it was a comment we had gotten last week. My party makeup for most of the dungeon, or for most of the palace, was Joker, Yusuke, Haru, and An. And then I switched out An for Makoto for the fight. Not for any real reason other than I had been using an item that gave all of Joker's personas fray, so I had nuclear covered, but then decided to swap that for another item to, I think, boost up some of my stats. So I brought her in just to be safe, and she has some of those, like, cure certain, problem abilities, which are useful. But I think if I had not had Haru, and had not had the personas that Joker had, and also importantly, not if I didn't bring in some items that gave me attack and defense buffs for my whole party.
Right.
I think that would have been the end of me, especially because I didn't realize Haru's triple shot ability was viable until that second go around. That really, really solved it for me.
So let's dig into what this fight is and why it's so hard. You have these waves of robots, right, that escalate in their strength as you defeat them. And the terrible part is if you don't kill an entire wave, all 4 members of the wave, within 2 rounds of attacks, they all disappear and come back with full health. And it sucks.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there's a 30-minute time limit where you're like, at the beginning of the fight, you're like, there's no way this is going to take 30 minutes. This will be fine. And that is like, well, I never lost to time. Like, that's not an irrelevant amount of time, right?
No.
Like, it's not like they just said, here's a timer to add stress, which it does. It's fun. It adds stress in that way. But, like, here's a timer to add stress, but you'll never hit this time limit. It's like, there's conversations you have to listen to and, like, skip through if you're doing a multiple playthrough or, like, a second try or whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, there's a lot of cutscene stuff. Like, this timer does matter if you're not being quick.
It does, yeah. I very much had that at the beginning where it was like, 30 minutes, I'll be fine. And then it got down to 10 minutes. I was like, oh no, why?
Yeah.
How is this happening?
And then the robots themselves just have a lot of health, right?
Yeah.
And Okuma's thrown out buffs. So, like, one of them might have a defense buff, which means that you kill all the others, but one of them is still standing, and then they reset, and you're like, great, you know? And this is a new to Royal, where the original was this escalating, you know, you had these escalating robot fights, but they never respawned. Like, that wasn't part of it. You would just kill them, and it would be fine. And that fight was, like, fine, right? So it feels a lot like they took all of the frustration that people had with the main palace and just put it in the boss fight.
It's the Patrick meme of, like, why don't we take the frustration and put it over here?
Yeah, pretty much. It's nuts. And real quickly, like, thematically, I do think it's an interesting and fun boss fight. The idea that Okumura is not actually fighting you himself, and when you do defeat him, it's like, literally you just tap him and he's dead, right?
Yep.
And then he's just using other people to get in his way. Like, that thematically is a very good idea.
Well, and the fleeing and then bringing in more almost really plays into that even better, because it is that idea of, like, they are so disposable and dispensable that he can just keep flying them in and he's totally fine. But my God, to go back to Mitch's question from the beginning, if you would just have taken off the 2-round limit, I would have gotten him the first try, no problem. Like, that is, to me, that is the thing that ruins the fight in terms of making it too out of balance.
Dude, the way that it's balanced too, like, even if you made it 3, right? Like, even the 3rd turn, a lot of the times I felt like I was like, when I did it the first time, that is, last on my first playthrough of Royal, like, there were a lot of times where it felt like, man, if I had literally one more attack, this would not be an issue.
Yeah.
So I think that, the 2-turn restriction is really unintuitive the first time you do it. Like, this is the thing about this fight to me, is, like, I feel like there's almost no universe where, unless you get incredibly lucky, you can beat this on your first try.
Yeah. You need to be pretty
impossibly hard.
Yeah, I think for me, what had I been using Haru's triple shot, I legitimately believe I could have gotten it that first time, because it was, I think I was stuck on the second to last enemy, or I think it was more the thin, long, bluish boys, I think.
Okay, sure. The thin, long, bluish boys.
Yeah,
yes.
those robots. And it was just a matter of the defense buff that he was adding always making me leave 1. And I had used all my bullets at that point, and the thing that I was not realizing was that, like, I didn't need to only rely on her psi abilities, and that was just a flaw, because the gunshots had a chance of doing more damage than that ability.
Right.
And so it just, had I realized that, I do think I could have gotten there, but also, if I had used the, give an attack buff to all my enemies, or all my party members, that would have screwed me over if I use that at the wrong time. Even stuff like
Right.
Futaba coming in with moral support. If she comes in with the wrong moral support or the right, that can really change that battle.
Yeah.
Too.
And it's annoying, too, because Okumura can just be like, oh, all your stat buffs are gone, right?
Yeah.
Or you can get rid of the defense buff on an enemy, and then immediately he'll just put it back on. And it's like, that stuff can be really aggravating.
Yeah.
Let's talk about... Or go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, coming away from it, I did enjoy the challenge of it almost. Like, there's a weird sadistic part of me that is like, I beat him, and yeah, that was like, it was rough, but I did it, and I'm happy about that, because it only took me 2 tries, but... God, I know how horrible it can be, and we do have an email about how horrible it can be, but also some upside to it. And I can read that now, I can read that later. But
go ahead.
So this comes from a previous guest and friend of the show, Barrett Courtney. Barrett wrote in after he knew what I was up to in fighting the boss and said, "Hey, Jonathan, and assuming we haven't introduced Tom yet in this episode, just to pause here after last week's episode. Really excited to hear both of your thoughts on Okumura's boss fight, which was a heated point of conversation among P5R fans when the game came out last year. One of you experiencing this drastic change for the first time, and the other being able to look at it again with more context. I remember playing it for the first time and having to walk away after a 3-hour session just dedicated to the boss. After 11 attempts, no guides, and just barely getting past it by the skin of my teeth, I swore to myself I would never play this boss again for how unbalanced and unfair all of the different aspects of the fight came together. The countdown, having to defeat each wave of enemies within 2 full turns, and defeating each enemy within a wave close together enough so that they couldn't run away, the buffs and debuffs, and targeting specific characters. At first glance, it all felt like good and interesting ideas on paper that the devs just threw all together because they didn't know which ones to stick with. I then replayed it earlier this year for content. He was streaming it, and dreaded this reunion. Granted, I knew what I was getting into, knew what headspace to be in, and understood the strategy, and defeated Okumura in 1 run. In retrospect, I really like this fight now. It's not a huge difficulty spike in a power sense, but a pure strategy sense. Because the changes in this game so far are so subtle, we forget that Royal is trying to push that utilizing baton pass and technical damage to their fullest is very important this time around. And I think because of that, this boss is actually a nice prelude to a later fight that really tests you if you've been paying attention how to best maximize everything you can during 1 turn and not just looking for elemental weaknesses. So a hot take, Barrett, at it again. Okumura's fight is actually very good, but because the rest of the boss fights are so far simple, it feels like BS the first time around. Anyway, hope you all appreciate it. And I have another question. So in Season 3 of House MD, when House is recovering from his gunshot wound, do you think that was point of no return for when it came to the Vicodin? Thanks, big fan, Barrett. And yes, I do. I do think it was. Absolutely. But that's for another show.
Yeah, I see where Barrett's coming from, but I
about
also
the Vicodin.
still... Yes, about the Vicodin. No, I also see... I see where he's coming from, but I also disagree. Like, I think that there is still balance issues with the fight in that if you aren't quite leveled enough, like, it doesn't matter how much technical damage you're doing, it's just like, or how much baton pass you're doing, it can just be so frustrating.
With the later waves of those enemies, for sure. I do think his point about that, like, and it is true, and me reading it there kind of opened, I had the little galaxy brain moment for a second, because Royal does put more of an emphasis on those things. Like, the fact that you can up baton pass and your technical damage in these ways, like, that is just not a thing that other than doing that as, like, a social thing outside of the game with billiards and darts and all that, I don't really think the battles prior to this hint enough that is a thing you should be focusing on or learning to strategize more.
Well, and this is my problem with this fight, really.
Yeah.
And this is why I think that I agree. I can understand why Barrett respects it in retrospect, but why I don't think it's a good fight still is because I like that it does encourage you. Okay, this is what I'll say. I like that it requires you to use these things that Royal emphasizes more. I think that is smart because, yes, it does feed into later fights too. But it does not teach you any of that. You just have to figure it out. There's nothing in this game that says, hey, the only way to get through this fight is to baton pass individually rather than using an all, and then eventually you'll do more damage. Like, nothing prepares you for that besides a guide on the internet, right?
Yeah.
Like, or in Barrett's case, like, just cramming out 3 hours of 11 tries, right? Which is not how a game should teach you how to play it.
Yeah,
so like that's my issue with it.
No, I totally get what you're saying, and so that's why I see both sides of it very much so in terms of
totally
of like I agree. I think the fact that it makes you use this, and if you know to use those things, and so I guess those asking for tips, that's one of the big tips is learn how to use baton pass and technical damage more, in a smart way. But yeah, I think if the game. They made enough changes to this palace that I almost wish there was a mini boss or two where that was a highlighted thing. And, you know, whether it was intimated or a character just saying like, maybe if we tried this, it would help more. Like, I think you could do either option. It would work. But I do think a mini boss or a mid boss somewhere in here that did that as a lesson would have gone a long way to making this feel less unfair. But I do agree, because it is a thing where like, you can get through the first probably few waves pretty well. Yeah. Almost regardless. But yeah, you can just hit such a wall with those final 2 or 3. And if you're not prepared enough, if you just don't come in with what you need to, there are sometimes just, it feels like there's no way to win.
So real quickly recapping the strategy of this fight, as it's like, well, kind of the people who have figured it out, right? Like, this isn't my own strategy. Yeah. Generally, you're supposed to go in with Haru, Ryuji, Morgana as your party, because that gives you a good spread of landing. I
didn't have any. I only had Haru.
Yeah. Well, you need people who can cause weaknesses, right? Yes, and baton pass. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go down the line. So you hit one of the people with an ability, and then you baton pass to somebody, and you hit another person with another weak ability, and you baton pass to somebody. And a lot of the time, the way you have to do this is use items to trigger those, right? And then when you've done that 3 times and only one person is left standing, you baton pass to your strongest person with the weakness ability. You use an all, which triggers another baton pass that allows you to use the all again. And then you do that for every single round. And then why you have Ryuji in the party is on the big bad guy who has no weaknesses. You can use Zio or like Zionga or whatever electricity attacks. Yeah. And he can get shocked, and then you can use Gun to safely trigger technicals for way more damage. Okay. And also Shock will skip their turn. Mm-hmm. So that's why you kind of want an electric ability on Ryuji and Joker too. And then that fight, and that part of the fight ends up just being like, keep your defenses high with Haru or whatever, and keep your health high with Morgana, and just have Joker and Ryuji shock like crazy. And eventually you get through it, right? Yeah. We have to move on though, because we're running out of time.
We've been on this for quite a bit. There's a lot to talk about, but yeah, I used Haru, Makoto, Yusuke, and Joker, and kind of lucked my way through some of the weaknesses. But yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, there's multiple ways to get through the weaknesses. So as long as you really Haru, it feels like the only one that's like super mandatory, I think. Yeah. And then the others are like, as long as you have a way to heal yourself and deal some damage and ping some weaknesses, you should be okay. Totally. But yeah, Ryuji with the electricity can be very useful for that shock ability. There's also Thunderbird is a persona in the palace that has really like Ziodine and shock boost, and like that's super useful for that. So there's ways to do it, but man, it is just a grind if you're not a high enough level. And yeah, anyway, this boss sucks. I'm glad we're through it. I literally didn't stop holding my breath until I had gotten to the save point, because I was like, what if my power goes out right now and then I have to do it again? You know, like it's a long fight, right? Yeah. Even knowing what you're doing and skipping through dialogue, like I think I only had like 5 minutes left on the timer, right? Yeah. Like it is a long fight.
We ate dinner very late that night because it took a while.
And I'm glad it's done and gone and dead. Yep. Anyway, story-wise, yes, you get Okumura to repent his sins. He says that he didn't have anything to do with the mental shutdowns directly. What he did was he gave somebody a list and they just took care of it, right? Mm-hmm. So we got a little more intel, but he's not directly behind the mental shutdowns. Yeah. And we are kind of frustrated by that, but go out anyway. And of course, at the very end of this palace, and a big scary twist is that a person in all black, after you guys run out as the place is exploding, shoots Okumura in the back, and then shoots him in the head, and his shadow goes psst and disappears. So someone evil is doing evil things.
What? Are you saying there's bad people in this universe?
I know, right? Which we'll learn the ramifications of the next week. Yes. I think is when that sort of clicks in. Let's see. Was there anything else that comes of that? We get a cutscene of, his treasure was a model spaceship kit, which is cute.
Yeah.
And then we see that the SIU director says that everything went according to plan.
Yes. Yeah.
So something bad is happening, basically. You know that not everything has gone peachy keen like other palaces.
Totally.
But the Phantom Thieves don't know that yet.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much all the resolution as of now. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Morgana says that Morgana feels bad about what happened, but is also kind of less obsessed with being human now, like less, because has found a place where he feels like he fits in and is like, that's enough, would be enough, right?
Yeah.
And levels up, I think, at 9 now. And then you get a Velvet Room conversation, which is basically just the guy being like, well, you're at your peak, which is always where you go before the fall. And that's not cryptic at all, so, there you go.
Smooth sailing ahead. Don't y'all worry.
And that's the palace.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get the conclusion of it next week. But we got there's one more thing I wanted to bring up, which I think is funny, which is all the palaces. I would like to hear your opinions about this, both you, Jonathan, and viewers at home.
Okay.
Because all the palaces are modeled after the 7 deadly sins. This is a thing that we haven't really talked about yet,
True.
right?
Yeah.
But Kamoshida is lust, right? You learn this through the will seeds. It was kind of a little more subtle. It was just like in the achievements of the base game, and now in the in Royal you get it through the will seeds.
Trophies.
Yes, excuse me.
Don't you dare.
Well, I don't know. Anyway.
PC users.
So Kamoshida was lust, right? Madarame was vanity, I believe, right? Like you can go through all of them. The thing I find funny, and I know people, there's a reason for this. Mm-hmm. Kaneshiro is a bank, and he's all about stealing money, and he's gluttony. And then Okumura is a food place, and he's all about food, and he's greed. And it makes sense for their thematic characters, because, like, gluttony, Kaneshiro was just like, I just want more.
Yeah.
Whereas Okumura was, like, about, like, hoarding for himself to, like, propel himself, and, like, he's greedy for power, right?
Yes.
And for politics, so, like, thematically it makes sense. But man, does it drive me insane that these two are flipped thematically. If flavor-wise for their characters it makes sense, but, like, for their palaces it is literally backwards, and it drives me insane.
Yeah, like you explaining it there, I do think it makes sense, but because I think for me it comes down to the idea that we associate greed with money, and we associate gluttony with food, and often just the original depictions of those things did as well, and so the idea that the guy who runs a food industry would not be gluttony and the guy who runs a bank wouldn't be greed.
It's wild.
It's weird. It hurts a little bit but I guess like kudos to them for also flipping it a little bit, because Kaneshiro is gluttonous for his greed, and Okumura is greedy in his gluttony of power. I don't know.
I think that is supposed to be the point, is that Kaneshiro is just like amassing more and more and more just to make himself feel good, whereas Okumura is like pining for something he wants far away that he's always sort of shooting for.
Yes.
And like, I think that does make sense, but yeah, it drives me crazy. I want to know in the comments if you think it's right or wrong or whatever, because I understand it. I just don't. I'm not happy about it.
Gluttony is a focus on the thing itself and storing all that up, whereas the greed is like amassing means to an end. It seems more as the...
Yeah, I think that's kind of what they're going for.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep an eye out. If you didn't notice the 7 Deadly Sins thing, keep an eye out, because it is a cool little thematic part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Let's get into the actual week, because we're basically out of time, and we literally haven't talked about what we did this week. So let's jump into it real quick. I mean, it's a free week. It was a pretty quick week for me. I basically took no notes beyond what I did.
Yeah.
So, like, hopefully that'll be the same for you. On October 4th, you went to the Palace.
Went to the Palace and then got a weird massage from my teacher and then hung out with EY.
Hey, great. Yeah. So that day I leveled on, and then I also leveled EY. So I'm getting a little farther along with both of them for sure. The next day you sent the calling card, which meant you had to do your thing indoors in the evening?
Well, so free time in class.
There was slacking off in class.
I finished Reckless Casanova and got more charm, even though I forgot that I already maxed out my charm. And then, I, in the evening, made coffee. Mm-hmm. And as you were saying earlier, you can learn things from this game. I learned about the origins of the word mocha, so that was great. It was a good day for me. Yeah.
What are the origins of the word mocha?
It's a port town in Yemen.
Oh.
And
okay.
It's related to that port town and their export of coffee and the like chocolate notes of their coffee beans.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my god, that's useful information.
I just figured that was one of those words that like Starbucks made up to sell things.
I assumed it was something we cribbed from another language, like half of the things that we call things in English.
Sure.
But, yeah.
Well, that's cool. That's neat. Yeah. I like that little fact. That day, I also read and finished that book and maxed my charm. So that's a max stat now.
Congrats.
Which I'm very happy about. Then that day, I leveled Futaba.
Nice.
And in the evening, I finished... I'm going for kindness at this point still, so I finished the Mouse MD DVD. So that's done. And we can never talk about it again.
I hope that Mouse's cheese addiction hasn't caused him too many problems on the job, is all I'll say. Like we're going to stop talking about House.
Yeah, I know. Then, did you have something else?
No, that was the 5th. So yeah, go on to the...
October 6th, we get to read on the train. And then what did you do that day?
I do want to point out, I read on the train, I thought I still had to get the trophy to get a home run or whatever at the batting cage. Turns out I got it already, so I just stupidly read the batting book on the train. Whatever. That day, it was the boss battle for me.
Yeah.
So in the evening... I think I did another massage, and then I went to the theater to improve my kindness, since that is a focus for me.
So that I started the proficiency, the like heavy proficiency book on the train.
Oh, okay.
Even though my proficiency is maxed, I just want to finish those books, and it's the last one. Then I did some Velvet Room stuff, so I like leveled the twins again, just to like get caught up on a little bit of that, and then I leveled Makoto. And then I leveled Oya that evening. So Oya's now 3 or 4, I think.
Congrats.
Yeah.
See, we're giving her time. We are, as we speed through this week, we're giving our time to Oya.
We're starting to get to the point in Oya's story where it's like becoming, or I'm starting to get to the point in Oya's story where it's becoming a little more interesting. It's still not there yet. Like, it is, this confidant takes a long time. Like, it's a tough nut to crack to get through that exterior, but yeah, we're getting there.
We'll get there.
The 7th.
The 7th, I hung out with Futaba during the day. Mm-hmm. Had Kawakami come over and make curry for me. I did want to just quickly say this is the first week that I've really had time to have Kawakami come over in the evenings and do stuff for me without having to pay. And I know that I had this power in the first game, and I don't know if I just didn't use it much or I just haven't thought about it. But man, it feels like cheating sometimes when it was just
I have like 30 cups of coffee and 20 curries.
Yeah, just like 3 nights in a row, I was like, oh yeah, just come over and do stuff for me. And I love that the rationale is, oh, I'm your teacher. I don't do the maid business anymore. So it would be weird for me as your teacher to come over at night and if anyone saw me. So I'll come over dressed as a maid because that is less strange for this high schooler to be bringing someone in a maid costume over to a coffee shop to cook for them.
Yeah.
Totally.
Now imagine if you're dating that person also.
Yeah, there's a lot of... it's just it was a really funny, like, oh, that's your excuse? Okay. Anyway, so I had her come over and make curry for me, and then I hung out with Oya in the evening. I think that was just to get more points. I think I was behind.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Yeah, if you're not hanging out with Sojiro, you just make Kawakami make coffee or curry. Like, it is just 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I do that every single night because it is It's just free stuff.
Yeah.
Right? It's just free SB items.
They want you to take the rolls.
So the 7th, I maxed on, so I got her to 10.
Nice.
So that's done.
Friendship
or friendship.
Okay,
Yeah. I did not date her.
Gotcha.
And then that evening, I played a kindness video game and maxed that out. So now I have
Nice.
three of my 5 skills maxed.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We're both 3 out of 5 then.
Yeah.
Because I think knowledge, charm, and proficiency.
Yeah. So I have kindness instead of knowledge.
Cool.
My 2 that aren't leveled yet are knowledge and guts.
Yes, yeah. Guts is...
And I'm working on guts, as you'll see later this week.
Cool. This is... God, what day is this? The 8th?
The 8th.
Did you have to do your evening as well, or... That was the video.
That was the game.
Cool.
Yeah.
I had a text from Makoto during the day, as I had mentioned. I had initiated the romance last week, and so I had a text today that the label was just important conversation ... I was like, oh, I need to answer this. Like, I felt like real life panic and anxiety of like, oh, I'm gonna be a bad person if I don't answer. So I went to go hang out with her, and it was to get to max rank on the romance side of it. So fully max ranked, romanced.
Congrats.
We are betrothed. Kawakami came over to make coffee, and then I hung out with EY. Again, this was like with Oya, just to get more points, because I had lagged the last couple times.
Right.
But yeah.
So I leveled Makoto that day, which was funny because it was the level 6, I think, rank up where you need max charm.
Okay.
So I had maxed charm earlier in the week, kind of just from reading that other book, and then immediately got the level that I needed it for, which is good because I was trying to get max kindness because Sojiro had a wall for that. I was trying to get max knowledge because Hifumi has a wall for that. And then also this week I hit the wall with EY where he needs max guts. So now I'm looking at guts because I figure you get more incidental knowledge, right?
Oh yeah.
And so in the evening I watched a guts movie, which was called 31, which I believe is a 24 parody, but like instead of it being like a cop and a bomb or whatever, it's like about an editor and a writer trying to hit their deadline. It's very weird.
And they have
it's
31 days?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not one that plays nearly as well in like the joke world. But it's fun still. It's cute and silly.
It's fair.
So yeah, I watched the Guts movie, and yeah, that was my 8th. October 9th.
Yes.
I think, did we do the same thing? I got in the evening of the 8th, got a text from Futaba to do a commit to the next day thing.
I got the text, but I didn't go.
Oh, that's a bummer.
I didn't, just because I felt like I had given Futaba a lot of focus and knew I had a few other things lacking.
Yeah.
So I didn't choose to go. Was it...
Okay, so what did you do on the 8th? Or the 9th?
I went to the park with Takemi, because I've been lacking on getting that to max and would like to get it there.
Cool.
So yeah, I wanted to make sure I did that before the weekend did.
Nice.
And then in the evening, Kawakami came over for lockpicks. I fed my plant, and then I ranked up with EY.
Cool. That day, so I committed and I went to Futaba because I actually needed points with her. I wasn't ready for a level up with her yet.
Gotcha.
I think she's at like 4 or 5 for me.
Okay.
And so we went, and it was this very fun little scene where you go to a toy store and she's like excited about all the new models, and then EY walks over and is like, she's like, oh god, don't make eye contact with that guy, he's gonna beat us up, he looks like a Yakuza or something. And then EY's like, oh hey, what's up? And you're like, hey man.
Hey,
and it's like really funny.
That's so good. Oh man.
EY is such a nice guy, even though he looks so scary. I love EY.
That's
I
great.
really do like EY a lot.
Yeah.
So that happened, got some points with them, and then the evening I finished the Guts DVD. I went to Chihaya and like made her up Guts for that day because I also drank a Guts smoothie, so I got a bunch of extra points for Guts, and I'm still not close to doing it. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of still what I've been working on.
Gotcha. Gotta go, just go eat some Big Bang burgers.
I mean, I already finished the challenges, yeah. October 10th.
Yes.
Health and Sports Day, so we had the day off. Futaba hanging out in the cafe. Didn't hang out with her, though. What did you do on the 10th?
On my quest to make sure I'm getting all the incidental things for the platinum, went to the temple for the first time.
Cool.
My note, went to the temple, got to get those trophies. So, yeah, that was really
Nice.
the only reason I went. Was just
Nice.
Yeah.
And then evening?
Oh, yes. And then the evening, Kawakami came over to make coffee. And then I hung out with Oya, again, trying to give that its fair share, fair shake, and spent some time there. Yeah.
Nice.
What about you?
I leveled Yusuke to 9, so we're dating now.
Good.
I don't care what the game says. In my heart, we're dating now. So I got Yusuke to 9, close to leveling him to max, which I'm excited about. And then maybe we can talk about him soon.
Yeah, it's a fun path.
Yeah, I've got like 5 or 6 people at max right now, so we gotta coordinate on who we're talking about next.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Then no, I have more than that. I have like 6 or 7 at max. Anyway, sorry.
I have a lot of hanging mementos requests that I just didn't want to do this week because I knew the palace was going to be such a thing to get through. So
I was planning on doing the palace this week, or mementos this week, and then I ended up just like having a lot to do and seeing a lot of people, and it was like, I'll just keep working on my ranks and not worry about mementos till after the deadline.
Yep.
And then in the evening, I finally leveled Sojiro to 7 because I had max kindness.
Nice.
And the super lame thing about this is you need max kindness to hang out with Sojiro, and then at the end of the thing, it's like, that felt like it improved my kindness. And it's like, game, what the heck?
What?
You know what you're doing.
Uh,
But I will say, if you would like to focus, if you care about confidant storylines, I think focusing Sojiro's story is one of the most important ones in terms of just plot. Because a lot of the events, especially as you get past this kindness bump, but just a lot of the events with him feel like mainline story stuff that happens to be in confidant stuff.
Totally. Yeah.
So yeah, it's really fun, or not a fun, because it's pretty heavy, but like it's a really good storyline that I really highly recommend people doing, even if the abilities you get are just like more curry. It's like not the most exciting things in the world. Is like it's still a really, really good story.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, that's our week, I think.
We did it.
We did it.
Yeah.
It only took us way longer than normal because we went really in depth on this palace and complained about the boss a lot.
It's a good palace to go pretty deep on, so.
It is. Yeah. It's a heavy palace for sure. I think we're going to wrap up though, because we've gone through the palace. I hope everyone enjoyed that in-depth palace conversation, and hope everyone else had good weeks. Next week we're going to jump into, the deadline is literally the next day in the calendar, so we'll have a big chunk of story stuff next week, probably less free time stuff. And let's wrap up with some quizzes. Jonathan, what you got for me?
Yes. For a Persona pseudonym, I have what I think would probably be an easy one, but obviously I'm pulling from Okumura's Palace. And a lot of them are really on the nose. This one is the Wishless Star.
So this is what I was saying, is I know the 2 names of the 2 stars, but I had both of them crafted, so I don't know which is which.
Yep.
Wishless Star.
Can you tell me the name of the other one? Do you know it by any chance?
I know both of their actual names.
Okay.
Here's
Let me give you both of them. They are Vicious Pentagram and Wishless
now I got
Star.
It. Yeah, Wishless Star is going to be Dekarabia, and Vicious Pentagram is going to be Kaiwan.
Reverse it.
No, really?
Yeah.
What? Vicious? They give that little starfish with the eyeball Vicious?
Yeah.
What is that?
He's the Vicious
horseshit.
Pentagram, and then Kaiwan.
I got really
with the big
squeaky
face.
because I was really mad. I'm sorry, I probably blew out my mic there. I'm really annoyed by that.
If you listen to the audio version, please go see Tom's reaction on the video. That was really good.
That's horseshit. I'm actually mad about that.
It's like greed and gluttony. They're just swapping it on you to annoy you.
Fun fact, really quick, because this episode's already gone way off the rails too long. Dekarabi is actually one of my strongest personas right now, even though it's just absolute garbage normally. And literally the difference is it somehow got repel physical. So now instead of being weak to basic attacks, it repels basic attacks and has no weakness. And it has like max heal everyone. It has res. It has Amrita Shower, which gets rid of all conditions. It has Megiddola. It is like literally my strongest persona by far.
That's incredible.
And it went from like being the weakest possible persona to the strongest. It's great. I love it.
But do you have a trivia question to wrap us up?
Yes, I do. Since we went through the palace, this week I've got a treasure question for y'all. This one's a little bit different because I don't know what I'm going to do for the next one, but I'm going to keep shaking them up. So one of the things you can get in the palace as a treasure, unrelated to the palace thematically, is these gemstones that you can get that are higher value gemstones that sell for a lot. So which one of these gemstones is a treasure you get in Okumura's palace and not one of the other palaces? And these are all called gemstones, although I know one of them is not technically a gemstone. Game calls them gemstones. Onyx, pearl, amethyst, or opal.
Okay.
They call pearls a gemstone. I'm not worrying about it. There we go.
And it's which Onyx, one you do?
Which one do you get in Okumura's palace?
Okay.
They are all items that you get in different palaces.
Okay.
But only one of them is available in Okumura's palace. So it's Onyx, pearl, amethyst, and opal.
I do have a guess, so even though I host next week's episode, if you wouldn't mind looking at comments, I'm going to try to stay fresh on this one.
You could also just like write it down, keep it somewhere.
It's true. I could. I need a pen.
Yeah, don't worry about it right now. This has gone on too long anyway. Thank you everyone for joining us. Morgana is like at this point tapping his paw, upset with us trying to go to bed. It's been a long episode, but we had a lot to talk about, and I'm glad we did. It is, again, one of the most divisive palaces, one of the most in-depth palaces, and I'm really glad that we took the time to sort of talk about the ins and outs of it and why it does and doesn't work. So that's it.
I was just letting you wrap up. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you because you were wrapping up. I was like, somehow I threw the show off the rails by saying nothing. It's incredible the power I hold.
Anyway, we're going to go to sleep. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm at Tom R. Marks on Twitter. He's at JM Dornbush on Twitter. You can always write into us at dornology@gmail.com or on the Dornology YouTube channel, wherever you want. Get in touch. Let us know. We like hearing from you. And that's all we got. See you next time.